Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the 9 weeks, which means we're getting close to our benchmark or our first module. And now we're going to get into more park-like questions for the next week or two. So part of that today then is going to be talking about interpreting functions. So basically, we're going to have some sort of word problem that talks about functions, and we need to be able to read that word problem and understand what they're saying and what inputs and outputs and domains and ranges are in those problems. So this lesson is basically designed to help you do that. All right. So we're talking about interpreting functions, and today we're going to talk about 3 different types of problems, which we'll see in the next video. But for right now, let's look at these couple of examples and these notes here. What you need to do is copy this down in your notebook, and then pause the video, copy this down in your notebook, and then come back and we'll go through them. All right, in the first example, it asks us which is the input, x, and which is the output, f of x. Remember, when we have f of x notation, that's function notation. Remember that? In this case, the thing inside of the parentheses, x, is the domain or the input. All right? And then the whole f of x, that thing, this whole thing, is the range or the output. And if you remember, the input values are always x coordinates on a coordinate plane, and the output values are always y coordinates on the coordinate plane. All right. So in this case, they're basically asking us which is the input x and which is the output f of x. So in this first one, we got f of 4 is equal to 137. Our input, obviously, is the thing that's inside of these parentheses. So our input is 4, or you can say x equal to 4. All right. Our output, f of x, is equal to 137 in this problem. So output is the f of x, input is the x. Input is the thing inside the parentheses, output is whatever we have over on the equal sign. All right. So in this second problem, our input is x equal to 5, because that's what's in the parentheses. And our output, p of x in this case, doesn't matter what the notation is, it's always the same. P of x is 223. All right. In this problem, m of 5 is equal to 115. Your input is x equal to 5, and your output is m of x is equal to 115. So this is just trying to train you to get used to seeing function notation. This is saying that if we plug in 4 for x and whatever the original function was, we're going to get 137. All right, and the same here. If we plug in 5 for x, we're going to get 223. If we plug in 5 for x here, we're going to get 115. So your actual coordinates here are x coordinates 4, y coordinates 137. X coordinates 5, y coordinates 223, x coordinates 5, y coordinate is 115. Okay? In the second example, it says in the function p of n is equal to 10n, which is the domain and which is the range. Remember, domain is input values or x values. Range is output or y or f of x values. All right? Or whatever letters they're using for that f of x. In this case, p of n. So in this case, our output is p of n. All right? So the domain in this case is n. That's the domain. And that represents our input values. The p of n, or it's equal to 10n as our function, that is going to be our range or output values. Okay, so that's all there is to that. All right, and finally on the bottom part here, let's consider a function. This is the general form of a linear function. In class we've been using y equals mx plus b, but f of x equals mx plus b is the same thing. It's just with a different notation. So notice here, if we have a function like that, this mx part, the m times x, this is the part that makes the function grow. This is the part that causes the line to slope up and down, causes it to grow. All right. The b part of this function is going to be, this represents the initial value. So b represents where you start, and m of x is what causes the function to grow. So that's an important thing to know, because when we get into these examples in the next video, you'll see where that becomes relevant. Okay, so if you have any questions about this part, please bring them to class.